Hey guys, OJ Albani here, bringing you guys part 2 of our draft league discussion of the week, I suppose. In being what is a sleeper mon that you draft, but nobody else drafts, and you always end up killing with it. If you want to watch part 1 of the video, it'll be in the description below. It was a really fun video. We talked about a lot of cool Pokemon, but there were so many responses that I just really didn't have the time to get to all of them in one video. So we're gonna try and cover the rest of them today. If I miss any of them because of like Twitter sorting things weird after the fact, I'm sorry. Let me know if I did. You know, we can talk about it in the comments at the very least, but obviously I'm trying to get to everybody, so we'll do that. And yeah, with that being said, if you guys do enjoy, be sure to drop a like and sub to the channel. We're on our way to 1,000. Again, the support lately has been ridiculous. The channel hasn't ever done this well, and it's a dead period for Pokemon. So like, considering that, it's pretty insane. I really want to get to 1,000 before Scarlet and Violet, and if you could help me out along that journey, I would really appreciate it a ton. But yeah, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. We can jump right back in. The last one we talked about was going to be, I believe we talked about Rhyperior from EM Burst, or is it EMB Burst? No, it's EM Burst for sure, right? But we talked about them talking about Rhyperior and things like that. I believe was the last one we talked about. And next up, we can always go on to Wagon Fruit, saying I'm always diversifying drafts, but Cobalion is a hidden demon if you draft it correctly. Ideally as an aggressive lead or mid-game breaker. Wait, did I talk about this? I feel like I might have talked about this. We're going to talk about it again, though. This might have been the last one we did, because the Rhyperior one was short. Still gives it decent resistance as an aggressive mon, and fighting types, and fighting gets a stab CC that threatens so much. Taunt and Volt Switch, too. See, I'm not the biggest fan of Cobalion. Again, I really feel like I talked about this. I'm getting crazy deja vu, which I might have. So if I shit on Cobalion twice, I apologize to Wagon Fruit and Baby Eric in the replies right below there. But I'm not big on Cobalion. I know it has value. It's a very, very solid Fizz Def wise. It's a great Fizz Def pivot. It gets Volt and Taunt and Stealth Rock and things like that. But in my opinion, it's just too fucking weak on both sides. Without a Swords Dance or a Calm Mind, it's really tougher to really threaten anything. And it just loses a lot of defensive utility on those setup variants and things like that, where I feel like it's just not functioning the way you really want it to. I suppose I think it was a lot better offensively with Z-Moves in Gen 7. I actually like Cobalion Gen 7 a lot. In Gen 8, it's just always fallen flat for me, though, and it's really tough to have such bad Spadef and then a neutrality to the Psychic and Fairy, whereas your Steel type is typically going to be one of, if not the main resist to those typings on your draft. Now, if the rest of your team covers that well, you know, maybe fine, you know, that works. But again, I still feel like its lack of, like, offensive presence really, really struggles for it, and, like, the mid-game breaker thing is just, I don't know, I'm not big on it, personally. That's just me, though. I'm not a big Cobalion guy. Next up, though, we have Goki Gamer saying, I will continue to preach how good Colossal is. I won't stop till the world sees that fact. I don't think Colossal is actually that bad. I know Kurt has enjoyed it the few times he's ended up drafting it. And it's put in some works for him with getting dual hazards plus rapid spin. It's really solid for its price point, as well as getting a fire immunity, being flame body. I've used it a couple times too, and with boots, it can stick around for a long time, and it's really annoying. Spreading flame body, spreading burns and things like that, whether it be through like lava plume. I think it gets lava plume. I really hope it gets lava plume, but I know it gets wisp. I know it gets like scorching sands as an option too. Rock plus fire is obviously a pretty cool stab combination, so really, it's not that bad of a Pokemon in the slightest. I think it's a very solid low-tier value Pokemon. Colossal, that is. Next up, we have King Waka saying, Galarian Slowbro honestly become one of my signature mon, considering how every time I use it, how every time I use it, it carries the game on its back, getting 2-3 kills every time. It's very reliable to sit there and kill things as a kind of weird cleaner. Its stats allow it to run more sets. I think G-Bro is actually really, really cool. There's been multiple times where I just like have not prepped for G-Bro when I've played it, and it's been incredibly tough. Incredibly tough for your boy, in the sense that I kind of get bullied by it, because, you know, while it's obviously not as good as G-King, it's still very strong. It's solid with an Assault Vest. Calm Mind and Nasty Plot variants are great. It's great with a Resist Berry. It's a little bit more physically bulky, I believe, too, unless I'm remembering wrong, but I feel like it should be, being that it's a Slowbro variant of the Slowbro Slowking thing. But regardless, very, very solid Pokemon, honestly. And again, spreads a bunch of passive damage, just a genuine nuisance. It's a really solid Pokemon, though, so I like it. Next up, we have Miltank from Jake here. I think Miltank is a pretty cool Pokemon. No, we talked about Miltank last time. I remember, because I know multiple people have said Miltank, so we'll talk about Miltank. And these next, like, 4 are all just Pokemon that have no explanation, which I think is very funny. But Miltank's a cool mon. It's a solid rocker. I think what makes Miltank very solid, and again, I talked about it in the last video, so if you want to see me talk about Miltank more, you know, if that tickles your fancy, watch the first video. But I think its speed tier 100 is very solid for a Pokemon as bulky as it is. That's kind of like the main allure to Miltank for me personally. And then obviously 3 great abilities in Sap Sipper, Scrappy, and Thick Fat. You know, giving it a ton of utility right there. Next up, we have Razor Clawing Sharpedo. This is a Pokemon I've wanted to try for the longest time, and I just can never justify drafting regular Sharpedo or even Mega Shark. I want to try Mega Shark so bad in a league that's obviously like not first turn Mega. If it's first turn Mega, I'm probably not trying Shark. But 99% of leagues aren't first turn Mega at this point, like showdown wise. But even then, just regular Sharpedo looks really cool as like an endgame cleaner, just like protect, just plus 3 attacks, whether it be physical, special. Mix, it gets flip turn this gem, which is a really cool option for pivoting. Obviously, it's kind of a defensive liability, which is tough from a water and a dark type. But again, we see other mons like that thrive. Like, I think Groudon's really cool. Again, I'm kind of a slept on mon that isn't drafted too often, but you know, I still think that Sharpedo has its value, and I would love to try it. I think it's a really cool mon. From one all-caps mon to another, we have Volcarona here from Aki. Volk is a really solid Pokemon. Now, I don't know how many people don't draft this thing. Maybe it's more of a Wi-Fi thing. I see it a lot more on Wi-Fi. Now that I think about it, and like all of my Nat Deck Showdown stuff, I don't see a lot of Volk, so it's kind of fair. And again, obviously, Quiver plus Boots is really good. It kind of makes up for the fact that Volk lost Zemus this gen, because Zemus were a really cool aspect of Volk. But having that like added defensive utility, finding that those more opportunities to set up and get up your QDs and things like that, it's great. But I think what Volk is really good at too, and a lot of people sleep on, is like non-Quiver Dance sets. Not that they're better than the Quiver Dance sets. I just think it adds a lot of utility to Volk and makes it a lot better than people would, you know, originally think, I guess is a way of putting it. Like, whether it be, I've seen like Specs Volk put in crazy work with like U-Turn. I've seen just like fat defensive Volk with like U-Turn and like Willow and Fire Dance and Roost and things like that. Really put in a ton of work. Be a very solid like Zamachek or something like that. Like, I don't know. I really like Volk. I think it's very solid. I don't think too many people think Volk is bad though. But it's definitely a crazy mon, and it can just run away with games too. Usually there's just one thing standing in the way that needs about like 40% off on it, and then the game's over with Volk. So unless you got the Heatran matchup, you're usually doing pretty good. And even then, in the Heatran matchup, you're probably picking Volk anyways, because you force in the Heatran, you get a free U-turn into X thing that bullies Heatran and the rest of the team. So like, provided you have a good team around Volk, it's probably going to do pretty well. Next up, we have Horizon Gaming saying Sandslash. This is an interesting one. Now, Sandslash, this is where we wish I got more, what do you call it? Like, explanations and things like that. Because this is a Pokemon I have, like, no experience using. I have, like, barely any experience playing. So I wonder where he sees so much success with it. Is it in Sand? Because my thing with Sandslash is, I started to say, like, Sandslash, like it was a mix of Sandslash and Sand. But that's just his fucking name. Let me look at, I'm pretty sure Sandslash is, like, what, base 55 speed? 65 speed. So even at +2, you're not outspeeding much, but it's a great spinner. It's very naturally bulky on the Fizz side. Spin F wise, there's a lot to be desired, but like AV maybe could work in some matchups. It gets Knock, it gets Edgequake, it can Wrap Spin, it can Rocks. I think it got Spikes this generation as well. Now I need to check that. See, now we're learning things about Sandslash today. Let me check. That's Sandaconda. I just typed in Sand and clicked the first mon because I assumed it would be Sandslash. So I got Spikes too, so maybe it's like a low tier, like, dual hazard setter, hazard removal kind of mon. It's really not that bad. It gets Leech Life and Poison Jab for like fat grasses that want to pivot in on it for free. Honestly, it doesn't look too bad. Now again, that speed and that Spadef is pretty goddamn terrible. But you know, a Pokemon doesn't have to be good at everything to be a low tier threat. Obviously, it wouldn't be a low tier threat otherwise. Next up, we have Pickles here saying Pikachu, the series mascot. You get a knockoff user, cleaner, and breaker on both sides, and it can pivot around too. For 1 point, it has the same attack set as Conkeldurr with dual priority and good physical electric stab. Pick is very much related. Also shouts to Sneasel, which is my second answer for this. That's a lot of kills with Sneasel. Actually, well, it's because it was only drafted twice. That is Pikachu drafted 10 times though. I'm assuming that's what that is. It has played 24 games and has 37 kills and 15 deaths. So he is the Pikachu guy. Sorry, Kurt. But I've seen Pikachu put in a lot of work. I have lost to a Pikachu, not like gotten swept by a Pikachu, but I remember it was in AP Evolution, which was a Nat Deck Showdown League. This was like almost like 2 years ago at this point. I was playing Pichu Bros in quarterfinals, and I had like a 70-something% Metagross in on a Pikachu, and I was AV, and I was like, word, I live a knock. I don't switch into this thing, I'm just gonna get damage off. I stayed in to look like Earthquake on my AV meta, and I just died to an Adamant Knock, which was fucking crazy. And again, I didn't calc it, and I probably should have calced it, because maybe I wouldn't have thrown away my Metagross like that. But in my head, I was like, yeah, I live. No, it was, and I looked after, I was like, yo, did I get like max rolled? No, it was guaranteed. I was actually at the min roll, with my investment and things like that, or whatever, you know, percentage I was at. So it was insane. This Pokemon, I think in niche matchups, it'll go crazy. Like we saw it go crazy against Liv when Kurt brought it against her stall team in NTP this last season. He brought like a really cool Focus Punch mix set, and it just massacred stall. It like O-code Kyurem, it threatened Blissey, it killed Starmie and like Scarm and a bunch of crazy mons. Really, really good Pokemon. Amazing Pokemon. So, for like 1 point, I suppose. It's not like, you know, a top tier threat. And this is like a bit excessive with how much Mr. Pickles is using this this Pikachu here. But it's definitely a really cool mon. This is a very interesting top 6 kill leaders. You have Blacephalon at 1, which is crazy. Then Garchomp, which makes sense. Then Pikachu, then Mamoswine, Megalop, Sneasel. It's definitely not my top 5 or top 6 kill leaders, which is very interesting. Okay. Next up, we have Talonsing Dhelmise. It's a very reliable spinner and spin blocker. It's good on defense with both Fizz Def and Spadef. If you're feeling a little extra quirky, so you can run a bulky offensive breaker set, they can definitely whittle down opposing mons. Also, 3 stabs is nice. I agree. I am the guy who always gets railed by Dhelmise because I don't prep for it, and then I'm like, oh damn, I don't switch into Poltergeist, Power Whip, or Anchor Shot, or anything like that, which is really, really scary. I think offensively, this Pokemon is where it shines. I know he said like, you know, if you're feeling crazy, you could be offensive. I think like offensive AV variants or like band variants are where Dhelmise really shines and really just rips through teams. Because it's really hard to OHKO. It's just so hard to switch into if you get in on fat and things like that. So I think it's very solid. I believe it also gets synth as well for reliable recovery, so it can function just like, you know, your fat grass, your spin blocker, like you said, your spinner. Really good Pokemon though. I'm a big Dhelmise fan for sure. Next up, we have Kanto Muk from Hungster Joey. Sandy. I like that. The name's funny. Kanto Muk, I've seen like no one else drafted but me in my 8 years of Draft League, and I've gotten several KOs with it, including Moonblasting or with Single Strike. I feel like Muk could be cool. Again, I don't know what it particularly offers to many builds. I suppose like Poison Touch, spreading poisons, and I know it gets like, it doesn't get knocked like regular Muk, which is actually kind of crazy. Does it get any dark coverage, actually? It's kind of interesting. Just payback. That's really interesting. Sorry. A regular Muk doesn't get knocked. But it has, like, elemental punches. Does it get thunder punch? That's cool. Poison jab. You can focus punch for fun. Again, there's, like, pain split. There's curse variants you can go with. You can go with power up punch variants. Shadow Sneak for priority. It gets taunt. It can do a lot of really fun things, honestly. I feel like this one, like, with an AV could be really annoying for, like, you know, the price point it's at. It could probably boom on things as well. You know, I'll give you the benefit of that. Maybe Muk is worth trying. It's a pretty cool looking mon, honestly. It looks like it's fun to build with. And again, very similar stats to Alolan Muk. It just lacks, like, the dark type and, like, obviously the knock utility and the abilities that thing has. But, or the second ability in Gluttony, but pretty cool. Next up, we have Pokemon Trainer Orange saying, I have to say I'm a huge fan of Alolan Persian, even after the loss of Z-Moose. Such a great speed tier and use of pivoting / taunt, and can even pull off fur coat physically defensive spreads to check stuff like Zygarde. I'm a big Alolan Persian fan. I know a lot of my boys really do not like Alolan Persian, but I think Persians are very, very solid. And again, as a pivot, it can tend to be a little bit passive with its very weak attack sets and 60 attack, 75 special attack, and especially typically you're going physical with knock. But again, it's not fun switching into knock. It's not fun getting taunted by the 115 speed mon. Not fun getting parting shot on or U-turned on, or switcherooed even, which is another cool aspect of this thing. It's not fun getting toxic. And I've even seen Nasty Plot Technician sets go crazy in Gen 7, where like Hidden Power was a thing. But I also really like just Nasty Plot sets in general. Could be very solid in certain matchups. With 75 base special attack isn't the best, but you know, say we get a Life Orb on it, we get a Nasty Plot off, we're faster than everything. We can be pretty annoying with like Dark Pulse and Thunderbolt and things like that. So honestly, really solid mon. I like Alolan Persian a lot. It's a great pivot, and it's great for a lot of you know, setup oriented things. Next up, we have Joe saying Sandaconda. very, very interesting. This is another Pokemon. Oh, I have it clicked in my team builder already because I typed it in earlier on accident. Let's go. So I think Sandaconda with sand is terrible. I think, like, if you're drafting, like, you know, sand, like some low tier sand office, and Sandaconda is your Sandsetter, not Sandspitter, that's its ability's name. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I wish they just gave this thing Sandstream, so it's such a shitty ability like Sandspit. But I think Shedskin variants are very annoying. I know Vivid used this really well in one NCP season when he played with us. I think like Shedskin, Coil, Rest variants are really, really annoying to deal with. It gets decent coverage as well in like Rock Slide and Fire Fang and things like that, which can be really, really annoying. I have my coffee right here, so I'm gonna drink my coffee. I decided to record this while I have my coffee, and then I'm like, I shouldn't drink while I... No, I'm gonna drink some coffee. Hold on. Okay. Bam. But it's a solid rocker. It gets Glare. It gets Hurricane for some reason, which isn't useful, but I think that's hella cool. But it's a really cool mon, honestly, for its price point, and very, very bulky physically defensive-wise. And you almost have pseudo-reliable recovery with Rest with Shedskin. Every time I've played this thing, I feel like it's the most reliable mon at waking up from Shedskin, too. It wakes up much more than I've seen Scrafty. Now, is there any, like, data backing that? Not at all, but I feel like it happens, so I'm going to say it's true. My source? Trust me. Next up, we have Buzzwole from the local hazard is Ems, I think? I don't want to say the name wrong. But we have Buzzwole. I love Buzzwole. We just drafted in BBL, and spoilers, it has been very fun to build with, very fun to play with. I've used it a few times in the past, and I really hate building for it, because, again, Fizdef monster, right? Buzzwole just doesn't die to anything physically in one, really, besides, like, stab, boosting item, Brave Birds and shit, and even then you could, like, go Koba and stuff like that with, like, Ice Punch, Stone Edge, and things like that. Like, obviously, you're very bulky physically, you're great with the helmet, leftovers, you're great with a, what do you call it, Resist Berry, being that bulky menace, being bulk up potentially and winning the game like that, but also... offensively, Buzzwole is very, very scary. You still have base 139 attack. You can boost in that attack stat, guys. I promise. It's allowed. And then you start throwing off close combat again as opposed to superpowers. So, like, Scarf variants are much better. Because, again, Fighting plus Bug is a very solid offensive typing. Look at things like Heracross. Like, it's tried and true. Very, very good. Especially in conjunction with Elemental Punches, like we said, Stone Edge, Earthquake, things like that. It typically has very, very solid coverage. I like Buzzwole a lot. I think it has a super sick design, too. One of the best shinies, too. I'm a big Ultra Beast guy, though, too, so I might be hyping him up a little too much. Yo, I just saw I got Fell Stinger. I'm about to run Fell Stinger Buzzwole. Sub-Salad Fell Stinger Buzzwole. Watch out, BPL. It's happening. And Endeavor. What is Endeavor? But it's a really great Pokemon, obviously. I really do like Buzzwole. I think it's a great mon. Next up, we have Christian saying, I have won many leagues with Kecleon, bro. He's won many leagues with Kek. This is a Pokemon that I feel like when I was new to draft, this is a Pokemon I thought was really good. I was like, it gets Protean. Look at that stat, 120. And I think it definitely has its uses, and I think a smart player can be very, very annoying with Kecleon and changing its typing, and, you know, like, being able to, like, Shadow Sneak the Medi as it comes in and wants to, like, hit you with the fighting moves. You know, like, again, very niche things I've seen happen with Kecleon that I think are cool. Now, is it amazing? No. I think it tends to get a little bit overwhelmed by the ghost that it wants to check, but it does get Recover, which is really nice. It does get Stealth Rock, and again, you have to be very careful about what type you're turning yourself into, so it's kind of a blessing and a curse, but, you know, it's really not that bad of a Pokemon. Really, it's not that bad at all. Next up, we have, a name and a half, but we have a Kecleon, speaking of that, on top of the Sharpedo, which is very interesting. We have Politoed. Pelipper is cool, but Politoed is life. Now, design-wise, for sure. I think Politoed is a, like, top 10 cutest fucking Pokemon. I think it has a sick shiny, too. I really like Politoed design-wise. As a rain setter, unfortunately, as much as I wish Politoed was better, Pelipper is better. And there's really only a couple of reasons why, right? Because Politoed has good defensive utility. I think the pure water typing defensively is better in a lot of instances. And it gets, like, Whirlpool Parasong sets, and it can just be kind of a general nuisance. It gets Encore as well, which is a really, really valuable tool in drafts, especially for a bulky Pokemon like Politoed. But there are two things that really set Pelipper above it, for me at least, and honestly, I feel like for most people, obviously. One is going to be the fact that Pelipper gets momentum in U-turn, so it facilitates switch-ins for your rain offense to come in, your Mega Pert, your Kingdra, your Barraskewda, whatever rain you decided to draft on your team. And two is going to be that secondary flying typing with that Hurricane Stab. A lot of the time, it's again kind of like harpers back to like me not liking Hippowdon because I feel like Hippowdon baits in the same things that the rest that Exeggutor loses to. Politoed gets checked by the same things that your rain offense gets checked by. But Pelipper, it's not the same a lot of the time because you have that secondary flying step, and especially with Pelipper too, because a lot of times it's going to be those bulky grasses that do not want to take a hurricane, actually. They want to avoid them like the plague. So you either get U-turns in on different things that are going to check Pelipper and, you know, get yourself more advantageous switches that way, or you're throwing up big, strong hurricanes to threaten everything, whether that be like Specs variant, Scarf Pelipper is a really cool option, or you're still just like, you know, your typical Damp Rock variant. So I think no momentum and being that pure water typing, as good as it is defensively, kind of hampers the offensive momentum capabilities of your rain offense. So as much as I would love Politoed to be good, it's just unfortunately not. As a rain setter, in my opinion. Now, maybe you draft just like a low point Mon and you get like a random size Matoa or something like that, and you don't draft like full hard rain with it. I don't think that's bad at all, and I don't think Politoed is bad. I just think that like if you're drafting rain, you're probably the only guy drafting rain in your draft pool in your league or whatever. You might as well get Pelipper. It's just a lot better on rain. Next up, we have Shadow Glade saying, gotta go with Alolan Exeggutor. Most people ignore on team building, only lose 2 Mons to it when Trick Room goes up. That Mon can be very scary. Where is Alolan Exeggutor? Very, very strong on both sides, honestly. 105, 125 in its attacking stats with good natural bulk. It can be very scary. So I definitely agree. Grass Dragon plus like ground and fire coverage can be very, very difficult to deal with. Next up, we have Anthony saying, gotta be Lurantis for me. A ground resist defog and one of the best abilities in the game in a versatile move pool. It's either a below 4-point Mon or a tier 5 Mon. I even got to sleep with this Mon. My old grass type reliable that no one picks up these days. I have definitely seen Lurantis put in work. The last 2 times I played a Lurantis team, I lost to the Lurantis team despite having a Scolipede on my draft in both drafts. This was a dark time for your boy. We won't bring it up any further, but obviously throwing off Leaf Storms and superpowers and knockoffs is incredibly valuable, and something that I think is really annoying about Lurantis is like with an AV, it's really, really tough to OHKO on one unless it's like with a like stab strong physical move, like super effective move like a Brave Bird, but even then if a superpower goes off, you're not gonna OHKO it. So you gotta be very careful about it, and again, it can kind of steamroll. All of those mods can kind of steamroll. Next up, I have H-Train Rhyme saying, gotta be Musharna for reliability, but I can't downplay my Sawk 6-0 for my first season of Draft League. Both honestly valid picks. I'm here for both. Mush is a great low-tier fighting risk, low-tier bulky psychic, with a lot of utility. It gets Baton Pass for momentum. It gets Trick Room as well, so it can Trick Room. It gets doesn't get Teleport. I'm sorry, I lied. My bad. It can Calm Mind. It gets Moonlight for reliable recovery. It gets solid coverage. And another cool aspect of it, outside of thinking of those things, plus like screens and things like that, is that it gets Heal Bell and Healing Wish. And I think Healing Wish is an incredibly valuable tool in Draft League. Being able to just completely revive a Pokemon in the middle of the thing using your Max Revive in exchange for your probably low HP Musharna is really, really valuable. So I like this mod a lot. I think it has great value in the low tiers. And then Sawk is another really cool mon. Sturdy is really cool, especially with Boots this gen. You can always ensure to have a Sturdy up, which is really, really clutch in a lot of matchups when you just don't have good defensive counterplay to X-Mon. It can really save your ass. And then again, very strong Pokemon with a decent speed turn 85 and 125 attack, as most fighting types usually sit around there with close combat and Earthquake and Poison Jab and Elemental Punches and, you know, cool things like that. So very solid Pokemon. I like Sawk a lot. Next up, this is a good one. This is the one I wanted to see, and I'm glad someone finally brought it up. Daniel here says, people don't see regular Gyarados that often. A great mon, perfect for both sweeping and breaking teams' walls. I'm using things in previous draft leagues and suits my old reliable Pokemon for any league. That is cool. It is snake season. Shout out to Beardy. I think Jason actually drafted this thing recently too. Diet Tight in a showdown league. I think it was like SPS or something like that. I think this thing has a ton of untapped potential in draft. I don't know what it is. Now, it's a little bit tough if it's your bulky waters. You don't want to take a lot of hits, especially if you're setting up. It doesn't have reliable recovery, blah, blah, blah. But even then, as a bulky water, it's not that bad. This thing is hella fat. With Boots this gen, it can avoid rocks. It has 95, 79, 100 bulk. And while that defense stat isn't great, you have Intim. So, like, you're checking and chewing up the hits that you need to chew. You can win games with DD. You can be fat taunt variants. You can be toxic. You can be rest talk. You can do a ton of really cool things with Gyarados. And I feel like it's incredibly underexplored in draft. So I would love to see more people try that thing. I think it's great. Next up, we have Onesie Bennett saying Lickitung. For 1 point, you get Crazy Fat Eevee like Cleric that passes big wishes and doesn't die. It also synergizes really well with your fairies. I've swept with Rest Talk SD, Phase of Dragon Tail, and used Body Press as an effective offensive tool on it. Young Tongue needs respect. Y'all know I'm a big Licky fan, whether that be Lickilicky, probably my 3rd favorite Pokemon ever at this point because of how much I've used it in Draft. But Lickitung is very solid as well. Now, it's obviously a little bit bulkier than Lickilicky, which is very, very good for it, and, you know, good benefit to it. The only issue is it's very much a knock fodder, and it's even more passive, which is very, very scary. Obviously, you can't be taunted, which is great. Did you know Lickilicky cannot be taunted? But you're much weaker. You're a little bit slower as well. And yeah, you're just, it's tough to kind of like not get taken advantage due to its passivity, and even like setup variants not being able to like be knocked off is very, very tough for it. But it's a very solid, like, you know, 1 point mon. Like, it's very solid, especially you're like, damn, I don't have a good ghost immunity, I need something like that. Get you a Lickitung, you'll be fine. So I think that's pretty cool. Next up, we have Seth here saying, Sandaconda and Aerodactyls are my kill leaders for one of my leagues that I'm just routed at. Got like 13 kills combined for the season, and they basically ran shop and had to be accounted for every week. Even if they didn't get a kill, they got damage or layoff. We already talked about Sandaconda, we can talk about Aero. Aero's a very solid Pokemon, 130 speed tier, pressure and Unnerve and Rockhead. Usually typically you're going to see Unnerve, though if we give this thing a little bit of Brave Bird Head Smash in Scarlet and Violet, maybe we'll see some Rockhead, because that would be really cool. But it's a very solid rocker. It got DD this gen, which is actually a pretty cool tool. It also had Home Claws before, but say you need to be faster than X-Scarfer, so you're not just instantly revenge. I think DD is a very valuable tool for Aero. Throwing off Dual Wing Beats is a physical flying style this gen, so even better than Aerial Ace, which I had before. Throwing off Earthquakes and Rock Slides and Fire Fangs and things like that. I think offensively, this Pokemon can be very solid too. Like we just said, I've used band variants. I love Mega Aerodactyl. That is an amazing Pokemon. Obviously, we're not talking about Mega Aero, unfortunately, but an absolutely amazing Pokemon. It gets a really fast Taunt as well, which is very valuable. It gets a really fast Defog if you need like a, get webs or hazards away or something like that. So I like Aero a lot. It's definitely fair. And then he also says Electivire with the next tweet. It says Zero Aura Light. It is a electric type that has an electric immunity. I don't know if I'd call it Zero Aura Light, and I think it actually has a lot of potential, especially as a low tier mon. I think like AV is solid. I think like Band is pretty cool too. It gets good coverage too, and Ice Punch for, you know, like fat grounds and grasses and things like that, as well as Fire Punch and things like that. So it's really not that bad. I wish it just like had like a secondary fighting typing and close combat, which they didn't give it to, even though like everything got close combat this gen. I don't know, they just did Electivire dirty, man. They did Electivire Magmortar dirty. They introduced it and they're like, yeah, but these are gonna suck forever. So yeah, wait, I already did this Witchered one. I know that for a fact. I haven't done this in Shoba one, so we'll come back. But I know I did the Witchered once, and the order might be all messed up. Yeah, we're almost done though. Okay. Woo. Gotta be Mega Pinsir here for Neshoba. For a lower 1 point mon, I could say Monferno. That's this nice defensive utility while still hitting with Blitz, CC, Mach Punch. 10 plus mons is going to be Slowking, which went 6 and 6 and 16 games, best pivot. I think I'm going to avoid the Slowking one because I feel like a lot of people draft Slowking as it is an amazing Pokemon. Monferno is a really interesting one. I haven't seen that one drafted since like the early days of Gen 7 draft when I was first starting out. We'd see some people with some like random Monferno sets, but it gets like Eviolite and Slack Off and Stealth Rock and U-Turn, and you know, a lot of things that Inferno gets just with like a little bit more defensive utility. But obviously at the cost of a lot of offensive utility. But it does have 78 in both of its attacking stats, and it can still be Iron Fist with Mach Punch, and you know, it's really not that bad. It gets Encore, which is a really cool, valuable tool. 81 as a speed tier is not bad for an NFE mon. So I could see someone drafting it for 1 point and getting some use out of it. And then Mega Pinsir, I feel like I've talked about Mega Pinsir so much on this channel, about how cool I feel like it used to be and how they just have shafted it every single generation, which is so sad. But it's really cool. I've in like older gens, I think it's very solid. In this gen, I'm not as big on it, but it definitely has very strong offensive utility, and it can be ridiculously hard to switch into in conjunction with Aerial Stab, plus Close Combat, and Earthquake, and Quick Attack, and things like that. Being able to Swords Dance, being able to Rocks Up is another really valuable tool as well. Now you have to be very careful with hazards on your side, but no, it's really not that bad of a Pokemon. I feel like people saw how bad it got nerfed, and they're like, it's bad now. It's just worse now. That makes sense. Next up, we have Shadow of Roserade saying, I have two actually, specifically in some BRL seasons. Archeops. People really underestimate its versatility and power. Sure, defeat is sucked, but the truth is you're really getting getting put into it if you know what you're doing. Honorable mention goes to Gucci Wall. Don't know what Gucci Wall is. So, we're just going to talk about Archeops, which I do really enjoy. I have drafted Archeops many times, and I really like in Gen 8 with the addition of Boots, allowing it to be a phenomenal kind of revenge killer, really strong breaker, and having the ability to just get in and get out, and not have to worry about defogging rocks while you're spinning away, so you're not put below half and defeat us. If you avoid taking hits, it doesn't matter if you go below 50, which is really clutch on with a mon that has 140 attack and 112 special attack otherwise, and obviously, people think of that 140 attack and it getting to wing beat and being able to throw big strong hits with edge quake plus flying stab. But again, a lot of the people don't realize that 112 special attack set is very solid with Earth Power and Heat Wave and Meteor Beam this gen, which is a super sick tool. I've seen banded variants go crazy. I've even run Spadef Archeops to check Torn Tees and Mega Charizard Ys and things like that. So I think it actually has a ton of utility, and I really enjoy this Pokemon. I think it's amazing. It also gives you a very solid defog, or like a good like Suicide Leap with like Head Smash, Endeavor, Stealth Rock, Taunt variants, and things like that, which is really cool. And Head Smash on this thing, it doesn't matter what your typing is, you're taking a chunk from it. So I think that's a cool option. Next up, we have Farmer Ultra saying it's got to be Duraludon. I grab it every chance I get and stomp any team with setup. The one time someone drafted Duraludon before I did, it went up for trade 2 weeks later. Now, as funny as it is, I have 100% gotten done pretty dirty by Body Press Iron Defense Duraludon recently in my draft career, which is very embarrassing to say out loud, but it was pretty solid in that game. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Duraludon in general. I think its typing is amazing, but its coverage is so lacking, its speed tier is very mediocre, and its Spadef is awful. So it really kind of just like falls apart for me. That 50 base Spadef is just like, oh, it's so sad. And again, if I had just a little bit better coverage, they'd just give you like Earth Power or something like that, which would make, you know, like decent sense. And it'd be pretty solid. But again, I think that Spadef stat and the very mediocre speed tier kind of just does it dirty for me. But I think like the Iron Defense Body Press sets are cool. I think specs are okay every once in a while. I think it also gets like T-Wave, and I know it gets Reflect. Does it get Light Screen? It gets Screen, so I guess that's a cool, aspect of it. It gives you Steel Beam and just click spec Steel Beam. I don't know. Not amazing, not terrible though. Next up though, we have John here saying, would it be, he said, am I old if I like to draft Emboar for head smashing purposes? I feel like old Draft League players are the only one that remember head smash being a thing. Now I know Emboar in general is a Pokemon I don't see drafted very often and I like a lot. I don't know if the main calling card of it is head smash. It's a cool option for it, obviously, with Reckless and head smash. But I feel like it's a more like a conglomerate of like recoil moves in general with that and Wild Charge and Flare Blitz. I don't think it gets close combat yet, which is very sad. No, it doesn't. Wow, that's really sad. But it gets superpower. It gets cool weird options like Grass Knot and Scald for like weird mixed variants to catch like, random fire resist switch-ins and things like that. It gets Sucker Punch for priority. It's great with the Scarf. It's great with Band. I think AV Emboar is really underexplored too. I know Kurt really loves Emboar, and he had like one season where he had like 27,000 kills with Emboar. He gets Earthquake, it gets Bulk Up, it gets, a bunch of really fun options. So I actually think this Pokemon's pretty solid. I don't see it drafted very often though, I will not lie. It's probably the least drafted of the firefighting starters for sure. Even when Speed Boost Blaziken is not allowed. So, yeah, I definitely think it's definitely pretty underexplored though. I think it's a pretty solid mon. Next up, ooh, we're almost there. Hello? Okay, we don't want to talk about the Dodgers. Actually, I don't like the Dodgers. Alright, let's scroll down. I had to open another one, thankfully. I promise. What a scuffed end of the video, right? Okay. Here we go. We have Dunsparce. I don't know what to say about Dunsparce. I know some people really like Dunsparce, and I think it's like part of it's like a Bidoof type mom. We're like, I like Dunsparce. I'm not the biggest fan. I don't think this thing offers a ton of utility. It gets like Claire, I guess. It can Baton Pass, it can Coil, it can be annoying with Serene Grace, like Rock Slide flinches, I suppose, if something that you para is ridiculously slow. I don't know. I'm not too big on it though. Personally, I think it's like a funny haha low tier mon. He's a funny guy. I know my little brother really likes this Pokemon. It's like one of his favorite Pokemon. It gets rocks. But it's just still a Dunsparce. Hopefully in Scarlet and Violet will get an evolution. Then we have Vaporeon here. Vaporeon is the true OG of bulky waters. talking about Vaporeon solely from a Draft League perspective and not any other perspective. I will not fall down that rabbit hole. Vaporeon is very solid. I think it can be a little bit passive, but I like drafting it, especially because it got Flip Turn this gen, allowing it to grab momentum for itself in order to not be a sitting duck versus a lot of disadvantageous matchups. You know, and not, you know, forcing you to make a lot of doubles and things like that. It's a lot safer. But it gets Heal Bell, it gets Toxic, it gets Scald, it gets Baton Pass. I get Baton Pass before, so I don't think it needed Flip Turn, actually, now that I think of it. But yeah, it's a very solid mon. It's a good bulky water, but I see it drafted pretty often. Next up we have, saying, it's Octodo. They say, even when they get drafted in my league, I'm generally the one who uses them. Boltund, Wishiwashi, and Archeops. Myself and my third. That's, very, very interesting. Okay, Wishiwashi, amazing Pokemon. I really like Wishiwashi. I think as a pivot, it's phenomenal with U-turn and Flip Turn. And it's ridiculously bulky. It's ridiculously strong. You have to be very careful about how healthy you keep it and how you use it. But it's a great pivot. It's a great breaker even in some matchups. And it's really hard to switch into for a lot of teams, whether it be physically, specially mixed, all that stuff. And you can very easily go minus speed, obviously, with that speed stat. Archeops we already talked about. I love Archeops. Boltund's a very interesting one. I'm not the biggest Boltund guy in the world. I do agree with Trexo in the fact that it's better than bitch-ass Jolteon, who sucks, because this thing can force its own progress even with neutral coverage, opposed to Hyper Voice Jolteon. So Trexo, I got your back, bro. I do agree that this thing is better than terrible Jolteon. Awful Pokemon in Gen 8. Oh my goodness. I thought it was bad in Gen 7, and then Gen 8 happened. Ugh. But that being said, it's not good. It can pair things like Nuzzle. It gets competitive if you want to be like a special variant, but you have no special coverage outside of the Hyper Voice. You're literally just Jolteon, but worse if you go special. So competitive is pretty terrible. But Strong Jaw plus like all the Fang moves and things like that, as well as Play Rough and, you know, cool options like that, could make it pretty solid. It's not the worst thing in the world. There's been a couple matches where I've seen Boltund put in some work, so really not that bad. Next up, we have Zach here saying Purugly is the best normal type. That is hilarious. Not like I'm shitting on you. I just think it's very funny because this is what we have this Twitter discussion for. Because never in my life would I have ever thought about drafting Purugly. It gets thick fat, which is cool. It gets Defiant. It's very fast. All of its other stats are terrible though. Minus attack is okay in 82. That's not the worst thing in the world. It gets U-turn, I suppose. My issue with Purugly is it seems it's very, very frail, especially if it's your normal type and you want it to be your Ghost Check and blah blah blah, and your Spadef, you know, pivot and wall. It gets Super Fang and Taunt, Stall Breaker, Purugly. Let's go. It gets Knock. It gets Play Rough. It gets, you know, like Body Slam, Facade for stab. So it's not the worst thing in the world. It gets Ground and Steel coverage as well to hit those like Rock types. Oh yeah. I'm not the biggest Purugly guy in the world, I would say. I don't think I'd ever draft it, but this is really interesting. Again, this is why I forgot this Pokemon existed, I'll be honest, so that's pretty cool. Next up we have Radley saying Urshifu, Zapdos. They're great Pokemon. I will 100% say yeah, bro. Like, they're great, but I don't know if they're slept on threats. I'm not gonna like touch too much on like Urshi Zap because like obviously they're very good, you know? And then next we have Clevin11 here saying, I love spamming Boomber, Specs, Swallow, and Nadex. I also really like Volcanion for insane special breaker that still has defensive utilities with Defog, Water Immunity, and Good Bulk. J-Bear would love this guy and his Volcanion love, because I know J-Bear really likes it. It's a Pokemon that I honestly want to give a try. It spreads a lot of passive damage with burns especially, or subtoxic variants I think on Volcanion are very solid. Again, yeah, heavy duty boots with Defog, as well as Specs variants, Scarf variants can be very solid, and then Boomber, Swallow. I remember Panther, speaking of just old draft league people, the crazy thing is a lot of draft fans now just don't know who Panther is now, which is crazy, but I know Panther loved Swallow. Big Boom Bird here. They don't have big Boom Bursts, Heat Waves, U-turns, things like that. But then obviously the physical Guts variants are very solid as well in certain matches. With the attack buff that I got in Gen 7, 85 attack is very solid with Stab, Guts, boosted Facades, and things like that. It U-turns around, Brave Bird, things like that. Fast Defog. You know, it's a very solid Pokemon though. I like both of these mons. That's a good one to end off on, unless we have quote retweets. I don't remember if we have quote retweets. No? Why does it say I have two then? What? Twitter? Okay, maybe they deleted them. Who knows? But yeah, that's gonna be the video. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments again what your favorite slept on low tier mons to use, or not even low tier, just mons that people don't draft anymore. Let me know what you enjoy using in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoyed, sub if you're new, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Oh, and watch part 1 later.